Hello folks, in this video I want to talk to you about the new features in Lightroom 7.2, the new release of the desktop version of Lightroom Classic CC 7.2 to be exactly. And I'm actually pretty happy about this release because it shows that the Lightroom team has not abandoned Lightroom Classic as some people feared would be the case. So the main new feature, well, it's not really a new feature, but the main improvements again are just like in the 7.1 update, are improved speed. So let's have a look at what should be improving on your computer as it did on mine. So the import grid should load faster and populate faster. There's also improvements in speed in the import process itself and the preview generation after that importing process. Also, when you walk through images in your film strip in the loop view, you should notice that they render faster, so that this just has become faster. If you adjust an image and develop, the adjustments show up faster, and so they also render faster. HDR and panorama merge has improved in terms of speed. The export procedure is faster, and that's maybe the most important one, because I've heard quite a number of people saying that they experienced, you know, with the previous speed improvements, that they said, well, I notice an improvement, but then over time, when I'm like working 15 minutes or half an hour in Lightroom, I don't notice those improvements anymore. It's like they fade away. Well, that was indeed an issue, and the good news is that it has been addressed, and this 7.2 update, it should either be gone, or at least for most people it should be an improvement. Now, this was also a thing that mostly affected Windows users, by the way. Now, one thing to bear in mind is that to get the most out of these advantages, it's a good thing that you have 12 gigabytes or more of RAM installed on your computer. So, I mean, personally, I think 12 gigabyte is something I would want to have installed anyway if I'm doing any serious Lightroom or Photoshop. For example, this old laptop here has 16 gigs of RAM and my home computer has 32 gigs of RAM. But the nice thing is that if you're still working on, for example, a computer with 8 gigabyte of RAM, you should see an interesting improvement in terms of speed when you add just 4 gigabytes of RAM. And these days, 4 gigabytes of RAM, they're pretty cheap investments. Okay, so that's news from the speed front. Now, there's a couple of other interesting things. For example, if you're in the folders panel, it's now become very easy. You just click on a folder to turn that folder into a collection. So just right-click on a folder and choose Create Collection, and it will create a folder, or a collection rather, with the same name as a folder. Now you might wonder, why you might want to do that? Well, because as you know, Lightroom folders are only available in the library module, whereas collections are available throughout the entire seven Lightroom modules, book, slideshow, you name it, it's there. So one way would be to have access to your images in that particular collection throughout the entirety of Lightroom. Another reason might be that you want to sort your images differently in your collection than you would in your folder. Or, for example, you might want to create a collection and then delete images from that collection because you're working towards a book, instead of, for example, flagging them or giving them star ratings. Because if you delete images from a collection, you don't delete them from the actual folder. So there's all kinds of reasons why you might want to create a collection out of a folder. So anyway, so that's just become more easy. Another thing is that if you're using Lightroom's map module, and I know that actually a lot of people aren't, and that's a shame because it's really a handy module to have if you have a GPS on your camera, or even if you don't have a GPS, you can always tag your images later, but that's a different story. Now, for example, here, these images were made in during a cycling trip through Iran. And for example, this is a pin here. Now, if for some reason, for example, I want to create a collection out of that, I can just right-click on that pin and choose Create Collection. Okay, another cool feature is we already have for quite some time the option to filter on collections. If you work a lot with collections like I do, and I suggest you do too because they're just so handy, well then you have a long list of collections and sometimes it's difficult to scroll through them and find what collection you're looking for. Well, Collections has a search panel and now Map, but for that I have to switch back to my library view, also has that search panel. So you can search in a folder. For example, I recently did a shoot with Vicky and I have the habit of renaming my folders with the model name in the shoot. So I'm not very structured, but at least I'm that structured. So the advantage is I don't know on which particular drive my folders are, because some of my recent shoots are on my catalog drive, my SSD drive here, but others are on my Drobo back home. So I can just type Vicky and Lightroom will show me all the folders that have that name or that name as part of their name. So let's have a look. And there we have it. That's the folder I was looking for. Now again, I can turn this folder into a collection, for example. Another thing I can do with a folder is right-click on it and mark it as a favorite. And as you can see, it now gets the little star icon here. I think it's a star icon, yeah. And so you can mark your most used folders as a favorite. And of course, you can also unmark them again. Now, the nice thing is that in this folder search panel, you can also search for favorite folders. So if you quickly want to have your favorite folders, well, it will find them for you. By the way, you also have access to those favorite folders, and that's another trick that a lot of users don't know. Through this here, if you click at the bottom of your interface, so at the top actually of the film strip, you have this line here that tells you where a particular image is. Now, if you click on that, you actually have the option to go through a number of specified locations in your catalog, but also you have an update of your favorite sources, and that can be either collections or folders, but you also have an overview of the recently visited sources, and you can even clear those recent sources if you want to. So that's another cool thing to have. And then finally, another new feature, small, but it can come in handy, is the fact that now you can also filter on the edit status of an image. So in the attribute section of the filter, we now have these two icons here, and these let you filter either on, if you click them, on edited photos or on unedited photos without any edits. So really handy to have. It also appears, by the way, in the metadata option of the filter bar, and then you can choose here to choose the edit criterion, and then it will display whether images have been edited or not, and you can see the number of images in that style. And finally, if you're into creating smart collections, there is now also a way to use that as a criterion, for example, has edits. So those are the improvements of the just released Lightroom 7.2. I'm really curious as to whether you like them or not, and especially if the speed will improve on your particular computer. So let me know in the comments, and hope to see you again on the next video. Bye bye.